So if we're talking about currency, okay, knowledge propositions are the currency of the four kinds of knowing. Very, very useful. Think about our economy and our shared fictions, like property lines are shared fictions. Lots of things are shared fictions. Lots of things are shared fictions. And the problem with having shared fictions, we get so used to them, we become blind and numb to when our shared fictions bleed over into what we think is real and what we treat as real. Okay? And that's one of the dangers of living in a propositionally normative society, and if you're in a propositionally normative in-group, okay, like Calvinism or provisionism, there's really no way to tell when the propositions have gone overboard and they no longer point to anything real. There's no way to. Now, the problem is we have propositions, we're trying to have propositions that point to things that are in Scripture, which is, again, something that, here's what I think is going on with Scripture. There are certain things that you can't just say in prose or explication like a user's manual, okay? The kind of language that you would have in a user's manual is different than the kind of language that you would have in a family, than the kind of language that you would have as a couple, than the kind of language that you would have in a business, okay? Than the kind of language that you would have in law, okay? All English, but all very, very different, okay? And listing things like instructions for how to assemble the furniture you bought at IKEA, for example, is going to be very, very different than something else. And if the Bible came to us like that, that's the people who are writing these kinds of theology works, they're treating the Bible like the writers of the Bible were writing something like, IKEA furniture instructions. And that's not what's going on at all. There's some things are ineffable. And so when they are ineffable, the way you communicate about them is through things like narrative, poetry, parables, things like that. Because if you have a narrative, think about if you've ever heard someone like Jordan Peterson talk about Cain and Abel, you can see that one simple story is just absolutely chock full of riches and goods and morals and lessons that you can just keep digging out and keep digging out. It's like an endless supply of morals and lessons. But instead of telling you a story, if I just gave you a list of morals and lessons, it would be very quickly exhaustible and it would not stand the test of time, and you would never hear of it after a certain amount of time. It would just go away. One of the reasons these stories stand the test of time over thousands of years is because they go beyond, the narratives go beyond what simple propositions can do. They provide a depth and a layering, and there's like a depth of exploration that you are continually discovering that is there, that isn't always clear to you or never was always clear to you. Okay, so it adds depth to, like, poetry can say that you can use poetry, you can use words and poetry to cause somebody to feel something that they would not feel if you described it scientifically. So we're using words to try to do two different things. So if we assume that the Bible is trying to do one thing, give us a semantically disambiguated system to which all the writers are writing in service. I'm writing in service to the doctrine of eternal security. I'm writing in service to the doctrine of election. I'm writing in service to the doctrine of justification. None of the writers are doing that. None of them are doing that. Okay? And so for us to treat the Bible as if they are is absolute profanity. Use the word profanity. I'm talking about complete disorientation. Absolute profanity. That's what's going on. And so we have a big problem in Christianity because we think the Bible is, we treat the Bible like it's doing this one explicated thing. When you explicate something, okay, into something like this or something like this, whatever is explicated is the limit case of what is. In other words, it's reduced to its lowest possible recognizable form, even if it's true. And the problem with these things is they're most likely very false on most things, and at best incomplete. So as soon as you explicate something, you lose more than 99.9% of whatever the thing is because you've explicated it. And people think, oh, propositions bring clarity. Well, they bring clarity at your lack of wisdom level to something that you can apprehend, but they do not do service to whatever the real thing is. See? And so we're constantly, like over in the East, they say the Tao that can be spoken is not the Tao. Jesus said, I am the way. So, oh, Taoism. Jesus said, I am the way. It's the same word, Tao. If you translate that into Chinese, you get Jesus says, I am the Tao. Okay? And the Tao that can be spoken is not the Tao. In other words, like the money is not the house. The money is not the car. The money is not the groceries. The groceries are the groceries. The propositions are not the thing. You have to realize that level of separation. Propositions point at things. Which brings me to this illustration. I just got this image off the internet. This is a picture of icons on somebody's computer desktop. I don't even know what these icons are, but if you notice those little tiny arrows there, I circled one of them in red. What that means is that's a shortcut icon, okay? So if I come over here to this Google Chrome icon, since there's that little arrow on there tells me that that's not where the program Google Chrome sits. That's a shortcut that tells the computer to go to where that file is on the hard drive and then run that program there. It's a shortcut, okay? So you can have a shortcut to anything. You can have a shortcut to a file, to a recipe, to a Word document, whatever you want. But they're just shortcuts. They're not the real thing. So let's say that you're a paleontologist, okay? And you're looking at all the things that paleontologists study. You say, what is all this stuff? And so then you have all these files on your computer. You study it for years and years and years, and you have all these files on your computer. Look at all these files for paleontology that I have on my computer. Isn't that impressive? Well, maybe you're giving a presentation somewhere, and maybe you actually did not do the study, you did not do the work. And so instead of having files that point to real, like papers on real data, you just have the shortcuts that don't point to anything. And even if you have the files that talk about the paleontological data, there also needs to be examples. Like here's physically the fossil that I found in the dirt. Here it is physically. This is what there's something tangible that you can encounter. And all the words associated with that field of study are pointing back to something that is perspectival, participatory, procedural, that kind of thing. So we're talking about paleontology. So if I wanted to lie, I could fill my desktop with all kinds of shortcuts that say they're going to all these files, but then there's nothing there. They don't point to anything. It looks like a lot of stuff. It looks very clear. It has all the right words and labels, okay? But it doesn't point to anything. It's just a shortcut that leads nowhere. That's what this is. That's what this is. These are the equivalent of shortcut icons on a desktop computer that lead to nothing. Absolutely nothing, okay? So they are misrepresentational. They are lies. They're not the real thing. So that's a very important point to get. So understand whatever analogy helps you best. Understand propositional knowing is the currency of knowing, or understand it as shortcut icons on a desktop that can lead to a real file but are not the real file. Okay, that's what propositions do for us. Now, if we talk of them as currency, we can say, let's look at what currency is. So Robert Breedlove is one of the experts on currency that's out there these days, and he says that currency, there's 5 properties of money. It has to be durable, has to be divisible, has to be recognizable, portable, has to be scarce. Okay? So the durability, you don't want to, like a dollar can withstand the washing machine, and you can dry it out and go spend it. Actually, you can keep it wet and go spend it, okay? So it's got some durability to it. Coins are pretty durable. Yeah, you can destroy them. Yeah, you can burn them. But if you're not intentionally trying to destroy currency, it typically lasts pretty long. At least it's designed to. So that's what it needs. And then you need to have divisibility. If all you had is $100 bills, how would you buy, a bottle of water or a Pepsi or a stick of gum, or those kinds of things? How would you break it down into something else? So, and then it needs to have recognizability. In other words, it needs to have features on it whereby you can verify that it is the right thing. And think about how this would be in propositions, okay? And then it needs to have portability. If money weighed 2,000 pounds, you couldn't take it anywhere and spend it. But if you can fold it up, put it in your pocket and take it with you, or have a little coin bag or something like that, it's portable. You can carry it with you. And scarcity. If there was just money everywhere, it wouldn't be worth anything and nobody would want to trade for it, okay? It wouldn't have any trade potential. And so nobody would be willing to trade for it if it was just everywhere. Like, you can't make a whole lot of money off things that are overly abundant here. Buying water is a lot cheaper than buying gold, for example, even though you'll die without water, not without gold. It's interesting too, but hopefully you get the idea.